So, what's your name, sir?
Joel Parsons.
Okay. And where do you come from?
I grew up in Arkansas. I live in Memphis, Tennessee now.
And what do you do in Memphis?
I teach at a college there, and I run a gallery, and I have an art practice.
An art practice?
Yeah, I make stuff.
So, what made you want to come out here to Tom House?
I had come for a visit last year, I guess, and just sort of fell in love with the place. And I knew Tom's work from growing up, but I didn't understand what his legacy was today and what was still going on and how active this place was. So I wanted to come back as soon as I could, as soon as I found out that this place existed.
And so can you just give us a little bit of a timeline since you've been here, like when you first got here, what did you tend to look at? I mean, you were looking at some of his work, right?
Yeah, it was a pretty quick trip in terms of when I found out that I could come, and I just a few days between sort of getting the go-ahead and getting my ticket, so I didn't really have time to plan, which turned out to be great because then I could just come and absorb everything that I could without some preconceived idea of what it was supposed to be or what I would be doing. So as soon as I got here, I just started digging into his archive of sketches and his preparatory materials and drawings, and then really the work that I've been doing just sort of grew out of digging into those drawings for hours as soon as I got here.
Yeah, you have spoken to me about appreciation of his lines.
Yeah, I think having as much time as I've had to dig in, especially to the sketches and the unfinished work, where you can really see, it's like looking into his brain. Like you can see him making choices and erasing something and changing the angle or making something bigger or smaller, changing positions of people or how they, are related to each other on the page. And so just being able to see all of that, and then also see the way he sort of nudges the line around and shapes it. I mean, almost like a sculptor, the way he's making these forms appear on the page. And so I got really, really interested in there's the content of the work, which is sexy and which is appealing for as content, but then the way that he, if you just take the line out of that, divorced from the content, I think it's still sexy, like the way that he actually crafts the drawings.
As a teacher, has that given you more language that you can use in communicating?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's always good to dig really deeply into an artist's practice, and that's one of the best things about being here, is that I could really just focus on Tom's work and absorb, stories about him right alongside his finished drawings, right alongside his archive and preparatory drawings, and so just to be able to get to know him as an artist that way helps. I mean, it helps me as an artist and as a teacher to sort of convey what it's like to, he really lived an artist's life, and I think that experience, and that legacy carries forward. Yeah.
And so, can you share a little bit more on as far as being here at the Tom House, and how has that been for you in regards to experiences and all of that?
Oh, I mean, it's been amazing. Like, I wish I could go back to the farm in rural Arkansas where I grew up and tell that kid that he would be here someday. I had no idea that this existed. I had no idea that this kind of community was here, and so just to be able to sit around a table and hear stories and hear, about how this place started, and hear about sort of how Tom developed as an artist and how he established a practice and the things that he went through to get respect or to get compensation, or just being able to be around the people who are here, because I think that's where I see the legacy most strongly is the way that people interact with each other here and the community that's here.
And how is that? I mean, if you were telling somebody about that, what words would you put to that?
I mean, it's hard to. I've been thinking about this a lot actually, and it's hard to put words around because the experience is so rich. I think I hesitate to use the word community because it's so overused. I think people use it all the time to mean all kinds of things, but I think this is a community in the truest sense, and that it's a place where, you know, even sort of people who might be seen as outcasts or freaks in other places are welcomed and not questioned and not interrogated as being weirdos, but are able to just come here and live and be who they are. And
you're calling me a weirdo.
Yeah. Yeah, I am. But that's a compliment.
Yes, I get
Yeah.
it. So, as far as now you're sort of it's finalizing is coming down to, and you were a special case in that we had a window of opportunity for you to come, and that was the whole short notice thing, and it was a capsule, shorter period of time, and you're actually leaving something which we will take a couple of more looks at before you finish it. And is there something that you can tell us about that piece that you're working on? Because it's your own work.
Yeah. It's so I've been making drawings where I sort of isolate shapes from Tom's work, and I've been kind of indexing those shapes and then pulling them back out and reconfiguring them, morphing them into sort of pushing them toward abstraction, and just seeing if I retain some feeling of his line or of his shape, how much of that content is still in there. And so the drawings that I sort of turned into a pattern and am putting in the ceiling, in the stairwell, are based on Tom's shapes, but sort of exaggerated, elongated. There's one form that's a boot that's just sort of ridiculously long, and that came really from looking at the way Tom would draw these boots, and you can just tell. I mean, the folds and the line work that's in there transcends the materiality of what a boot is.
Right.
It's not. It doesn't make literal sense, but it's. You can just tell that he was getting off as he's drawing it, and he was so into it, and he made it so like luscious and kind of extravagant in the way that it sits on the page. And so I just wanted to kind of sort of pay homage to that, and made a kind of insanely elongated, folded boot shape that's also kind of phallic. It's also kind of intestinal. I think it's really bodily. And then there's also a circular shape that's sort of a whole, that's made up of kind of bits of leg and arm and pant and sleeve kind of inserted into each other in a circle. So there's sort of a phallic shape and a whole shape, and they're kind of interacting with each other in a sort of pattern. And I like the idea of making it almost like a decorative pattern because it's a domestic space and it's in the home, and sort of playing on the idea of like the textiles that are all around the house, and but sort of embedding Tom's line and something of his content into a kind of decorative pattern.
It's really, I mean, you've taken his influence and then really gone to, I mean, you articulated it very well, and that you actually went a lot of places with it.
Yeah.
So, I guess, is there any other things that you would like to tell us about, just about you, or about Tom, your experience here, or what goes on next?
I mean, I feel like I've this has been in a way like a research trip for me. I've made a lot of drawings and made a lot of work, but I feel like this is really sort of a turning point in my work as an artist, and all the research that I've gathered in terms of the drawings of Tom's that I've seen, and the kind of research drawings that I've been making, but then also just the stories and sitting around the breakfast table or drinking coffee with somebody in the garden in the morning, or all of that. I feel like I'll keep working out and processing for a long time to come. You know, so I feel like this is really, even though it was Felt like a very quick trip. Was sort of just a beginning, a catalyst.
A taste.
Yeah, and I'll keep processing this stuff, and I'll keep reworking it and thinking about it. You know, I'll carry it back to Memphis with me. And
So you're a Memphis boy.
I am.
You're not going to become a California boy.
I mean, I do really like it here. I could be convinced to come out here for longer.
Well, one thing that we want you to know, as we want everybody who comes to visit here at the Tom House, is that you're always welcome to come back and to actually, in fact, we really want you to come back. And now that you've left something of your own mark here, which is really the basis, the ethos of what this place really makes it live. And so you'll have to see how it's aging, and obviously it's just one little flowering expression. And so we are inviting you to come back and do more.
I appreciate that. It's been a huge honor for me to be here and to just be even just close to this legacy and to be able to absorb what I have here. I feel very honored, and I felt very welcomed and supported here, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I think that the way that you actually spoke about taking things from Tom, but then really contextualizing it and making it your own, that's very valuable for your students to know. I mean, because sometimes I think that they don't know the difference between plagiarism and taking and having influence. So, on that note, I thank you, and we'll be seeing you again soon.
You will.
Okay. And we love the pink hair.